Welcome back, guys. We're going to be doing another episode, and today I think it'll be really interesting. I think I'm continuing this kind of series of looking at European countries, so please introduce yourself.
Hi, so my name is Soraiya, and I'm from London.
Yeah,
I'm in year 13.
nice. Same for me. So, just to get started, I'll just ask you, could you provide a brief overview of maybe the coronavirus in the UK, like when it started and how it's looking right now?
Yeah, so I think coronavirus came in around late February, early March.
Yeah.
But we were no one really cared at that time. We just thought it was like a virus, but it wasn't on that much of a huge scale. But then it was around March the 20th, I think it was, that we went into lockdown. So everything was closed, restaurants, bars, pubs, everything was closed, school was closed. And yeah, no one could really go out. Yeah, that was, yeah.
Yeah. So for you right now, are you doing online school right now, or are you like going back in real life?
No, so lockdown kind of eased at around summertime. So we went back to school in September,
Mhm.
and everything was really normal. We act as if there's no COVID, which is ridiculous. That's crazy.
Really?
Um, yeah, so we have to wear masks.
Uh-huh.
Um, and we're in year group bubbles. So I think you guys call it grades,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we're in bubbles with just our grade.
Mhm.
So there's no social distancing there. The only people we social distance with is if they're in a different grade to us.
Oh, really? Yeah. That's different
Yeah,
from us.
it's
So
crazy.
yeah, for us, we have like, so right now for the first term, we only have seniors, because we have to take we
Yeah,
have to take exams and like elementary,
yeah,
because obviously you don't want the parents like managing their kids at home, right? They have to go to work or something. Um,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so we only have these grades, and like even like we have to social distance. Our tables are like what 1.5 meters. We have to like we can only sit like four
Oh,
people in the
really?
cafeteria. Yeah, so you guys, I guess it's just like as long as you stay inside your bubble, it's fine because it'll be confined to that area.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then like when it's like wearing masks, there's like different levels. Like there's like okay, we're gonna wear masks, like they're gonna tell us, but like we'll take it off sometimes if we want to like talk to someone. Like, is it
Yeah.
is it a strict kind of wearing mask or is it kind of loose?
No, it's really, really so. In the corridors, they're quite strict on it, so we have to wear masks in the corridors. But the second we step into a classroom or we have a lesson, it's as if Corona doesn't even exist. We're all sitting this close. There'll be one person here, one person here, one person here. When we don't need to wear masks, it's just as if, because essentially we're all in a bubble. So if someone in our class gets it, then our whole class gets to go home for 2 weeks
Oh
and
wow.
self isolate.
Yeah.
So it's just it doesn't really make a difference whether we're 2 meters apart or not because we'd still be sent home.
Hmm.
It just does make a difference because obviously we don't want to catch it,
Yeah. And
but we would still be at home.
outside of school, can you go to like restaurants? Like you can do whatever you want, or
Um,
is it?
we can't know. So we've actually gone into a second lockdown.
Mm.
But that still allows schools to be open. So everywhere else is closed, but schools still stay
Oh,
open.
okay. So that's not that bad then.
Yeah.
So like you won't be spreading it
Yeah, exactly.
outside then. It'll just be like a bubble.
Exactly. So
Okay.
restaurants are only open for takeaway, and supermarkets are still open, but everything else is like officially closed. Shopping malls are closed and stuff. So I guess it's only schools because obviously we all have exams and
Mm.
we need to get into university.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And generally, like for British people, are you guys like are you happy with it? Is it like does it make sense? It's like this is good. We're doing it well, or are you like we could be doing it better? Do you think?
Um, I think there's a balance between
Mm.
keeping the economy and keeping a good
Yeah.
healthcare system. Because I think the main difference between this lockdown, which is lockdown 2, in comparison to lockdown 1, is that schools are open.
Hmm.
And also we still are open for takeaways and things, and it's a lot less strict with this lockdown. Like
Yeah.
the traffic is ridiculous on the way to school. No one would even believe that we're in lockdown. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, so I think some people do prefer it if we went back to lockdown 1 where everything was completely shut because that's when numbers actually went down. Whereas now there's not that much of I haven't really seen the benefit of going into a lockdown 2 because it's not like numbers have significantly gone down.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like a bunch of places are having this second wave, right? But the mentality is almost like
Hmm.
it's a lot more laid back than the first wave, even though in some countries the cases actually might be higher. Like in the UAE,
Exactly.
reported cases are higher than they were in like May, June, like the peak of the first wave. We're like,
Yeah.
hey, going to school, going to malls. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's almost like
Yeah.
I guess it's almost like people are just waiting for the vaccine at this point, and it's like we'll just let the economy run as it is, I guess, right?
Exactly. And I think also like no one wants to have a recession. So
Hmm.
they're trying to find the right balance. And I think some people agree more with who cares about the economy, our lives matter more. And there's other people that, especially business owners, like my granddad has a coffee shop,
Mm.
um, and he has no one in his coffee shop anymore because no one wants to go into a coffee shop. They'll just make a coffee at home. And they won't
Yeah.
even, his coffee shop is in a train station. So it's right next to where people travel to get to work. But now that no one's going to work, he's essentially running out. Like there's no business.
Yeah, that sucks. Like, yeah, there's so many cases
Hmm.
of all these like restaurants and public kind of like they need service, right? And it's so hard nowadays
Yeah,
because some people are just
exactly.
they don't want to get sick. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for your parents, so they can go to work, right? I'm assuming like do they go to their workplace or are they stuck at home?
So my mum goes to work because she's a teacher.
Oh, okay.
And schools are still open, but my dad's working at home.
Hmm.
So he just has online Zoom meetings, sometimes
Yeah.
Teams meetings. But everything's done at home because he works in an office, so essentially everything he can do at work he can do at home as well.
Hmm. And okay, so
Yeah.
so for your country, like okay, they're wearing masks. Are they testing a lot? There are some countries where there's like we do a ton of testing. Like okay, in the UAE, like their average is I don't know, but it's high. It's like one of the highest. And then there's countries in like I don't know some South Africa, some South American countries that might not have the infrastructure or something like that, right? Is
Yeah.
the UK is what kind of spectrum?
Yeah, testing is really big here. So if we have symptoms, we're told to test.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in schools, like our schools can tell us, I think you should take a test. And some schools have to physically see the result of the test before they let us back in.
Yeah.
And even if we just think we have a normal cold, they'll tell us to take a test. I think before it was kind of testing was not as strict because everyone was in a lockdown anyway. But I think now that schools have opened, we just have to be a lot more careful because there's so many kids in schools. And now, before in lockdown one, it was more. I don't know if it was the same with you in UAE, but in around March, April time, it was mainly the elderly people that were getting COVID, and now it's more students, university people who are at university. Um, because I think the other problem is the university life, like especially when you go into university for your first year, everyone's kind of
Yeah.
having fun. There's freshers week, there's parties, um, and it's quite hard to be told no, you can't have any of that. Um,
Yeah.
so I think there's some students who are still doing it anyway, rightly or wrongly, whether it's allowed or not.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that is where numbers are rising.
Mm. And like the universities are a big focus for us, right? So we're both seniors,
Hmm.
and for us, we've seen the people in the year above us, right? They're all online, and it's just not good, right? For you, has that changed how you've looked at like your applications or anything, or has it just made you more wary about what the next year might actually be looking like?
I don't think it's impacted me in terms of my application, but it definitely has made me more wary because the other thing is I'm not too sure whether I want to stay in London or not for
Mm.
university. So then I guess it's kind of if if I'm paying to spend more money at a specific university and I'm just going to be online at
Yeah.
home anyway, what is the point?
Yeah.
So it's
Exactly.
kind of made me more aware of if I go further away, then my lessons will be online, but I'll still have a somewhat unique experience because I'll still be living away from home.
Yeah.
Um, but if I still live at home and then have online lessons at home, essentially it won't really feel like university. It will just feel like online school.
Yeah. Exactly. And when you're saying like
Mm-hmm.
further, what do you mean? Do you mean like in the U.S. or somewhere else?
Oh no, still in the
Yeah.
UK, but just a bit more like outside of London, so
Mm.
Nottingham or Manchester
Yeah.
or somewhere.
Okay. And
Hmm.
so let's say for London, like are different cities having like different protocols or is it similar across the country as a whole? Would you say like London is better or worse?
Um, well, um, right now we're in a lockdown nationally, so everywhere in England there is a lockdown. Um, but if you take us back 2, 3 weeks ago, each city had like a specific tier. So London was in tier two. So essentially what that means was that it was like, I think it was a rule of six, no household mixing, but you can meet in a rule of six but outside.
Yeah.
Whereas there are some people in tier one who they could meet in a rule of six inside. And then there were some people in tier three who could not meet anyone outside of their bubble. And I think there was a lot of mixed views about that. Some people liked that because they were like, okay, there's no point all of us following the same rules if we all don't need to.
Yeah.
But then there were other people that were like, how is this fair that they're allowed to do this and we're not allowed to do this? But I think now, because we're all under lockdown, we all have the same rules and everything applies to everyone, which I think is kind of good because numbers are rising everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. I like looking at the progress now, it really just seems like people, or at least like generally governments, have kind of shifted back towards just letting it do. Like, there's really no strict. Like,
Yeah.
there's countries like China who are able to like forcefully like stop it, right? But obviously,
Yeah.
obviously most countries can't do that, right? So I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of countries just like UK, also a bunch of other countries I've seen before, like Greece or South Africa. They're kind of just like, you know, it has to take its course at a certain point, and we just have to wait for the vaccine, maybe.
Yeah.
So for the UK, personally, I'm an American citizen, right? I don't live in the UAE, right? I live in the UAE right now, but I used to live in the US, right? And I know that
Okay.
healthcare is different in the US than it is in a lot of, let's say, modern, like developed countries like the UK, right? So for social healthcare in the UK, how is it approached to coronavirus? Like, let's say, like if someone gets sick, are they able to find a hospital bed to sit in, or is it limited or just not good quality?
Yeah, so I think the key difference that everyone knows between US and UK is that we have free healthcare.
Yeah.
So essentially, if someone gets sick, they have access to medicines, they have access to a hospital bed without having to pay for it.
Yeah.
So I think that has truly helped significantly because I can just imagine lots of people in the US getting COVID and not knowing what to do because they can't afford to get themselves, treated. So I do think that it's a really good. I do think that our healthcare system is a lot better.
Yeah.
In terms of hospital beds, I think you do have a lot of access to it, but depending on how many cases there are in a specific area, it might be a lot harder because I've heard on the news that ICU beds are like critically running out, and it's become quite a problem. But we've actually built hospitals, so we actually have something called the Nightingale Hospital now. So we converted the Excel Centre in London into a hospital to make more beds to treat coronavirus. So I do think we're trying to do as best as we can in terms of healthcare.
Oh yeah, that's great. So I'm gonna assume then that most people are happy then with like how, at least they know that if they're gonna be sick, they'll probably be in good hands. They'll be taken care of.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for majority of people, we're just told to stay and self-isolate for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on how severe the cases are. And I think before, if maybe March, April time, we had a big problem in terms of spaces in a hospital because it used to be the elderly or the more vulnerable or the people with underlying health conditions that ended up in the ICU. But I think now it's taken a turn, so it's more students and younger people getting it purely because they are not social distancing or whatever the reason. I don't want to put a stereotype on all young people. But yeah, so I think for them it has less of an impact in the short term in that they just stay at home for 2 weeks, whatever medicines they need to take, if they need to take any medicines, and then 2 weeks later just go back to living their lives, I guess.
Yeah. So generally then that's great. So would you say you have a positive outlook on the progress or like in the way that coronavirus might end up being? Like, let's say 6 months from now, a year from now, do you think it'll be a lot better? Let's see, assuming the vaccine comes out and we're able to.
I do. I really hope so.
Yeah.
I think we do have kind of good news in terms of the vaccine. I think they said 95% success rate. Um, so hopefully that should get kicking in and making an impact. I guess if you asked me last year, do you think in 6 months we'd have a global pandemic? I would say no. So I can't really predict, but I do hope it does go by then. Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems great. So I guess seems like the UK is doing well so far. I like the idea of the bubbles. Actually, most countries they kind of either just do like harsh all quarantine or like no quarantine, depending on how effective the government is. The UK is
Yeah.
really interesting in that perspective. So thank you so much for all your information. Thank you
It's
for coming.
okay. Yeah. Thank you.